question about one of the things that we've always talked about, a 24-hour economy. The fact that this is one of the things the government campaigned on and got into office with a 24-hour economy. Now, this is what we're going to do, guys. So, I have here with me the FAQs on John Mahama's 24-hour economic strategy. And this is what was prepared by the NDC Communications Bureau before election 2024. So I just would share this briefly, and then Kojo Akoto-Boateng has the 24-hour economy document. We'll do the comparison, find out the similarities and differences of this and that document. But before I do this, before the end of before we went for sports, I was talking about the 24-hour economy, and I made a point about the way that, in the past, the NPP had done the 1D, 1F. And I said before that this is just another form of 1D, 1F. Let me just explain that. So we had said here before that, look, if you want to engage in a 24-hour economy, there should be some sense of a market reacting to it, or a market leaning towards that. And market leaning towards that, for instance, yes, government can use policy to drive that. But if governments want to fast track a 24-hour economy, then the government must step in and create infrastructure also to enable a 24-hour economy to work. And look, we've been talking about the Agbeleduo and the Volta, transport system, and the
Volta Economic Corridor.
Volta Economic Corridor. The government must pump money into it. Now, a lot of the 1D, the 24-hour economy hinges on the Volta Economic Corridor. How much is government prepared to spend? We're told that of the about 4 billion that this is supposed to cost us, government is prepared to fund some 10% of it, which would amount to $400 million. So far, how much has government spent? If government is serious about this, government should take the lead and spend that money. Once that money is spent, it will trigger others to also, because every private man, would not put in money just because you're giving assurances. He would do his feasibility studies, and if he thinks it's not going to work, he would not put his money in. How much is government prepared to spend? What risk is government prepared to take? But let me just share with you, the strategy. So they talk about, what will be the main driver of Mahama's 24-hour economic strategy. It says it would mainly be anchored on Mahama's overarching vision to create sustainable jobs for Ghanaians. This will be achieved through his agenda to modernize and mechanize agriculture, provide incentives for the private sector to thrive, promote agro-processing and manufacturing, transform Ghana into an import substitution and export-led economy, among others. The 24-hour economy policy will be a major boost for John Mahama's import substitution and export drive. This will stabilize our national currency, improve our reserves, bring down inflation and interest rates, create more employment opportunities, and improve livelihoods. Which industries, and Kojo, when I come to you, tell me more about this. Which industries will the 24-hour economy strategy focus on? Now, we're told the 24-hour economy strategy will primarily, but not exclusively, focus on 1, 24-hour agro-processing, 2, 24-hour pharmaceutical industry, 24-hour manufacturing, 24-hour construction, 24-hour extractive industry, mining and quarrying, 24-hour sanitation and waste management, 24-hour leisure and hospitality industry, 24-hour digital startups and business process outsourcing, 24-hour financial services, 24-hour retail centers and modern markets, 24-hour transportation services, and also selected public institutions with large customer traffic, such as ports and harbors, customs, passport office, DVLA, among others, will be part of the 24-hour economy. The 24-hour economy will also be implemented within the context of other national development initiatives, such as education and training, health services, agriculture, and the provision of affordable housing for workers, efficient public transport, efficient justice delivery, among others. It is all part of an ambitious drive by the NDC. Then this question says, what kind of support will be given to these businesses and companies by government in order for them to operate 24/7? One, providing an atmosphere of improved security and public safety. This will include a well-regulated and monitored private security architecture to facilitate around-the-clock activities. Two, providing cheaper and reliable electricity for participating businesses based on a time-of-use tariff system. A time-of-use tariff is an electricity pricing structure where the price of electricity varies based on the time of day and day of the week the power is consumed. And companies that sign on to the 24-hour economy policy will be given modern smart meters, which will be calibrated to charge a lesser tariff per kilowatt hour for power consumed during off-peak hours. 3, tax incentives. Companies, businesses that subscribe to the 24-hour economy policy will be given tax incentives to reduce the cost of the operations and enhance their competitiveness. And financing support will be provided for certain strategic agro-processing factories and manufacturing companies. Now, the final one here that I would do before I stop says, what will be the implementation approach of the 24-hour economy strategy? It says the next NDC Mahama government will publish the blueprint for the implementation of the 24-hour economy strategy upon assuming office. Businesses and companies that wish to take advantage of the incentive packages under the policy will be required to voluntarily sign onto the 24-hour economy policy. Companies that are already running 24/7 would automatically be captured under the policy and provided with necessary incentives. A new Employment Act, which will, among other things, set out the regulatory framework for the 24-hour economy, will be passed in consultation with organized labor, AGI, and other relevant stakeholders, and the act will complement the existing Labor Act. Final one here says, what will the next NDC Mahama government do to enhance efficiency and productivity in the already existing 8-hour system, work system in public institutions? It says, we shall consciously promote discipline and efficiency in the already existing 8-hour work schedule in public institutions and in new additional work shifts by introducing appropriate measures to root out practices that militate against efficiency and productivity. Kojo Akotobating, you have the document. What does it say?
The new 24-hour economy document.
Yes.
So is what you read, the caption was FAQs on Mahama's 24-hour economy strategy.
Yes.
And for listeners who want a copy of that, you can go to johnmahama.org. There's a copy so that you can refer to that. Now, the new document is the 24-hour economy and accelerated export development program. Ghana's national agenda for productivity, competitiveness, and inclusive growth, transforming production, markets, and human capital. Now, this was launched sometime last year after the 24-hour economy secretariat was launched at the Accra International Conference Center. Now, if you look at that, it provides a context for 24-hour plus and also gives you the program components and the strategies. I believe we all have the context for the 24-hour plus, or do I have to read the context for 24-hour plus?
Briefly.
Okay. So basically, if you look at the document, the vision is President Mahama's vision is to drive a self-reliant, industrially competitive and export-driven Ghanaian economy with optimally integrated value chains, a globally competitive workforce, and strong regional and global trade integration, delivering sustainable, inclusive growth, decent jobs, and increased resilience to external shocks. That's very important. Increased resilience to external shocks. And it talks about the colonial economic structure where our raw commodities are exported and we don't get a lot of value for that. It talks about import dependency where Ghanaian manufacturers depend heavily on imported raw materials and machinery, and they sell 90% of their products in Ghana. And this structure means that every production cycle involves a net loss of foreign exchange. So now we need to get our raw materials and machinery in-house. Structural misalignments with the domestic economy and a few other things mentioned in there. Now, if you look at the 24-hour plus, the components of the project, these are the components of the 24-hour plus project as launched and as being implemented.
Okay.
Because now we have a 24-hour secretariat, which is going to be an authority, right? Has it been passed yet? Has Parliament passed the law to make the secretariat an authority? Sammy, please check for us. Let's know whether it's been made into an authority. Now, Grow 24 is component number 1, which is the Agri Transformation Sub-Program under 24-hour plus. Make 24 is number 2, Manufacturing Growth Subs Program. Build 24, Construction Industry Transformation. Show 24, Culture, Arts and Tourism. Connect 24, Supply Chain and Market Efficiency. Fund 24, Mobilizing Capital for Inclusive Transformation. Aspire 24, Human Capital Development. And Go 24, Driving Civic Commitment and Public Alignment. I must say that before this 24-hour plus full program was put together, after the president won the elections, the secretariat then met a lot of industry associations, professionals, business people, and the various subsector leads and groups to take their feedback. I sat in one of the conversations for agric and construction, where they took feedback from industry as to what we can do to, one, transform those industries, optimize the resources we have, optimize the time, and then make us an independent country when it comes to the control of our economy. Right. So these are the 8 components of the 24-hour economy. Grow agric, manufacturing, construction, culture, arts and tourism, supply chain and market efficiency, mobilizing capital for inclusive transformation, human capital development, and then driving civic commitment and public alignment.
Okay, so if you look at what they shared, prior to election 2024, you'd see a 24-hour agro-processing. So that's the GROW. You have a 24-hour pharmaceutical industry, 24-hour manufacturing industry, 24-hour construction, 24-hour extractive industry, 24-hour sanitation and waste management, 24-hour leisure and hospitality, 24-hour digital startups and business process outsourcing, 24-hour financial services, 24-hour retail centers and modern markets, 24-hour transportation services, and then the selected public institutions, as well as education and others.
What were the outcomes they said we should look out for? The outcome indicators for the 24-hour plus program. I think that's what we can use to measure the success of the program so far, or otherwise, right?
Sure.
They gave us outcomes and indicators, and they gave us the indicator definitions. So economic growth and self-sufficiency, they're talking about real GDP growth rate year on year. Okay. So the indication definition is to measure the overall economic expansion. So what has been the GDP growth between 2025 2026? What is the projected GDP 2026 2027? What is the baseline we are working with? For example, before 24-hour plus, what was the GDP projections? With extra work being done for 24-hour plus, what do we expect to see? Right? So that is number 1. Economic growth and self-sufficiency, overall inflation year on year, economic growth and self-sufficiency, gross import dependency ratio. They talk about food security and nutrition. They talk about workforce and social development, and they talk about agric, industrial and export development. There is something they also did when it comes to job estimates for Grow 24, for example. They gave us job estimates according to districts and all those. Where are we with those job estimates? How many jobs have we been able to create within the various sub-programs, within the various districts, and in the various regions because of the implementation of 24-hour economy? that is also in there. And remember when the Deputy Minister of Finance came, for example, we were talking about the oil palm development program and the estimated number of jobs, and it became a debate. How do you estimate those jobs realistically to transform our lives? If we are talking about transportation, a 24-hour transportation system, if you look at DVLA data and you do the analysis, public transportation, the general trotro and buses, we are looking at about 400 to 450,000 of vehicles. Your regular trotro will have a driver and a mate. So direct employment, if you assume that the buses and all the trotros all have a driver and a mate, you are looking at about 800,000 people to 1 million people in transportation. That could be our baseline. What investments are we making in the logistics space to create extra jobs, whether we are doubling the jobs, and what kind of jobs are we creating, and what kind of earning potential would these new employment create for the people? So those are some of the things. So basically this is 24-hour plus, which still has a lot of questions. For example, funding. How do we intend to fund this? This year's budget has thrown a lot of money behind a lot of the big slogan programs, big push, this, that. How are we funding the 24-hour economy to deliver as promised? So these are some of the things, Winston.
Great. Now, if I look at it critically, I see that the moment the government got into office, now they began to have a clearer idea as to what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, prior to the assumption of office during the campaign period, a lot of things were thrown out. 24-hour pharmaceutical, yes, you could put that into the manufacturing. But the challenge really, and you ask a question, you end on a note, the challenge has been, where will the money come from? Now, once in office, the NDC realizes, the government realizes, that you cannot just say that 133 and then one job, 3 shifts,
it's 24-hour economy.
It's 24-hour economy. Because even the DVLA, if you were to do 133, you probably would get people to say, come in, and it's not all DVLA offices that will run a 24-hour economy. I mean, if you go to certain areas where there isn't a busy, there isn't traffic in that particular area, you're not going to say, okay, let's go and run 24-hour economy just because you want to run a 24-hour economy. So that in itself would tell you that the very idea on which this whole program was built while in opposition, again, was what we have become known for in this country, sloganeering.
Yeah.
133, one job, 3 shifts, 3 jobs. So then people would get jobs, because today the unemployment number from 1.4 million to 1.3 million, it means you have a reduction of, say, 100,000.
Yeah.
You want to ask, where did the 100,000 go? Are all of these people still looking for jobs? Have some of them gone into school and as a result are not on the market? Have some been absorbed? Of course, every year would create jobs in this country. So I would just say that, look, I have been told recently that the government has secured funding for the Kumasi, for the Accra-Kumasi Expressway construction.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that this year that project is going to start, and the expected completion period is before the end of tenure of the John Mahama administration. All other things being equal, I say, if the government is really serious on the implementation of the 24-hour economy, the Volta Enclave Development Project, they must put in the money. The government must be the one to put in the money and not always expect the private sector, because the private sector would always do their feasibility and find out the viability of that project. Sometimes they are waiting for you, the government, to come in, set up the base, and once you set up the base, they'll be prepared to put in money. So if you want to improve transportation along the Volta River, what should the government do? There's a lot they have to do, and it must start now. Guzitano has been frank and has said the time that you probably would see a lot of things happening, or the first thing you could probably, the first time you say, I've seen something from the 24-hour economy will be last quarter 2026. So for now, you may not see much. But I say, if government does not move in to spend, we would have another 1D1F on our hands.
When the government wants to spend, they want to fund it. Should I quote the bit of the document about
I'll
funding?
tell you something.
Kojo, should I go ahead?
Please do.
So on Fund 24, the government says they will unlock $1 billion plus in enterprise financing for MSMEs in strategic value chains, and they will be doing this through DBG and rural banks and microfinance institutions, and also savings and loans and commercial banks. Loans will be concessional below 12%. So the government is going to facilitate cheaper financing over $1 billion, which is over 10 billion Ghana cedis under Fund 24. Number 2, the risk lending through the risk MSME lending through a technical assistance grant fund and credit insurance scheme, supporting borrower readiness, cooperative development, market access facilitation, credit scoring, and real-time loan tracking. This will be implemented through enterprise support organizations and risk-sharing facilities in partnerships with institutions like GESAL. Is it clear to you?
Continue.
It is clear. Number 3, support infrastructure financing through the creation of 3 special purpose vehicles under the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, focused on agroecological parks, industrial parks, and multimodal logistics systems. These SPVs will be seeded with public capital and structured to attract blended finance, sovereign wealth funds, and private investment through PPPs. So infrastructure such as inland water transport, that's the Volta Economic Corridor, will be prioritized to reduce logistic costs and enhance regional trade connectivity. And so at least they've given us 3 ways that the 24-hour plus program will be funded. Loans through DBG, rural banks, microfinance institutions, technical assistance grant fund, and credit insurance, and also special purpose vehicles that will be funded through arrangements which will be facilitated by the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund to build infrastructure.
I like the loans bit, the bit about supporting MSMEs through DBG and others, but again, the challenge is, in the past we've seen these things. I've always talked about the cab bus, for instance. I've talked about the Ghana Employment Agency, old Ghana Enterprises Agency, old NBSSI. So something would have to change. If it is done well, fine. So that's in that one. You say, okay, no, that's a good policy. Let's see to its implementation. When it comes to the Volta Inland Transport Scheme, is the first thing I want to see the government do. You see, once that is done, automatically it deals with the transportation of persons and goods from the north to the south. Automatically we deal with that. And that should be our first priority. I don't know why today we are not talking about how, when we are going to start improving that. I don't know why we're not talking about that.
What I know is that they've had a lot of conversations with different stakeholders. Different investors have expressed interest in investing in the Volta Economic Corridor, but we have to look at some of the legal and regulatory issues. For example, the Volta Lake at the moment is an asset of the Volta River Authority. There's the 280-foot contour related matters. There's the implications on our power production, and also the actual funding for work to be done. So those are happening. That's what
the problem is. The actual funding is the actual funding. That's where the problem is. Okay, so that's 24-hour economy. I am also interested in something. Illegal mining. Galamsey. Now, President Mahama, just listen to this. You just listen to this. Listen to this, and then I'll come and tell you something.
And he said, if you had come here 6 months ago, this water was the color of coffee. He says now it's the color of light Milo. And so it's getting better. And so we appreciate the work that NIMOS.
Okay. And, the president talks about, in the NDC's manifesto and the 120-day social pact, social contract with Ghanaians, they have talked about how they intended to, repeal LI 246, the LI that allows mining in forest reserve, that 2462, that currently has been laid before Parliament after a lot of, back and forth, because then they sought to amend parts of it, but then we had all fought and said, no, that's not what you promised, so go back and do the right thing. They talked about establishing the Blue Water Guards, who were supposed to help in the fight against illegal mining.
And they will work 24/7 because sometimes illegal miners work at night. So it's 24-hour economy.
Yeah, Blue Water Guards who were trained to go and do what?
And work.
Fight illegal miners.
Protect.
With what? With what?
Are we talking about Galamsey?
Yes.
Now? All right. Well,
because I have seen something on Kofi Bento's Facebook page, and I think it makes a lot of sense. That look, the Blue Water Guards should actually be reassigned into afforestation programs in areas that have been destroyed by illegal mining. In that case, they will better serve this country than pretending to fight illegal mining along our water bodies or on our water bodies, because they cannot.
Galamsey over the past decade has turned into the graveyard where government competence goes to die. It is the arena in which no government seems capable of succeeding yet. Akufo-Addo's putting of his presidency on the line made absolutely no difference. In fact, things ended up a lot worse, to the point where he even had to personally come out and defend members of his party who had been accused of illegal mining, claiming that Akunta mining, for example, was not mining as we speak. Hearing a president who was a lawyer saying those things just demonstrated to me that this Galamsey enemy is greater than we could ever imagine. John Mahama came along in the wake of massive promises, and you see, it wasn't difficult. While he was in opposition, the Galamsey situation was so bad that it was not difficult for a potential president to paint a rosy picture of what he would achieve in that sphere. And his 120-day compact had some very clear timelines in there. Apart from the Blue Water Guards, he talked about restoring land that had been destroyed by Galamsey. Even before the 120-day compact or contract, President Mahama had talked about how he would free all the small fry if he became president. He would release all the the guys who have been caught in the mining pits and go after the kingpins. That was John Mahama's promise.
Okay.
Well, it's been a year, and we know that there is a docket against Chairman Wontumi came to the Attorney General's office in October or September 2025. September 2025. So for the first 9 months of the year, who was being prosecuted for Galamsey?
Could you please hold on 1 minute for me? Because Erastus Saridonko has joined us on the phone now. He's our man when it comes to the reports on the fight against illegal mining. Erastus, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston.
Great.
And Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year to you also. So let's get straight to your assessment of the fight when it comes to the fight against illegal mining. Yesterday at the annual New Year school, President Mahama talked about the fact that we're beginning to see some improvement in our water bodies. We're beginning to see how the fight is yielding results. It talks about how people have told him that, in the past this was more like coffee, now it's like light Milo. But that's on a lighter note. But you've been going around, you've been looking at our water bodies, you've been monitoring the fight. How's it going?
Well, let me start from 2025 January, when this government took power. In fact, they did not start well. The party faithfuls who thought that once the party is in power, it's now their turn to also take over from the people who were mining in forest reserves, especially in other areas. They took over. And so in areas like Tananya, we had known NDC activists who invaded that forest reserve. Initially, the feet dragging of the government in forcing them out. We had to force the arm of government, if I should put it that way, to go in there and flush them out. And since then, it's been like that. We bring it out. But what positive I would say is that this government has been listening as compared to the other administration. And in fact, some of the areas that we pointed out, they've been able to flush them out. Let me start with the forest reserves. In fact, when we started the year 2025, there were quite a number of forest reserves that even forest guards, armed guards, cannot even enter. And there were 9 of such forest reserves that were labeled as red by the Forestry Commission. And Desiree was one of them. We had Tano Nimre, and some others. But as at the middle of last year, they've been able to reduce it to 1. And then in October, it returned to 5 red. Currently, I don't know whether they've been able to remove the red from 5 to 0. But that's at October last year. There were 5 forest reserves that even the Forestry Commission could not enter. So it's been like that, back and forth. We do this, and then we are gaining grounds, and as we are gaining grounds, we gain, and the people come back. And let me also say that the fight has not been abysmal, and it has also not been better. It has not been abysmal because there are some efforts on the ground. It started with the IGP's men, who made quite some gains in removing illegal miners within a number of forest reserves in the western region. Currently, as we speak, we have over 100 excavators that were removed from the forest, still parked at Samre Boy. There are some at the Kumasi depot of the Ghana Police Service. There are also some at the depot of the Forestry Commission in Kumasi. So I would say that is a gain. Again, when you look at NIMOs and how frequent they have been, especially on the Ankobra River, burning stuff and arresting people, those who are mining along the river and on the river as well. But it has been hide and seek. They drive them out, they come back, they move in again, they go drive them out, and then you see them coming back. And that is why the river is not clearing. The Ankobra, for instance, have been blocked in so many areas. And I have said this so many times, that until we move in and desilt those areas that have been blocked, especially at Pristia, Hemai, Awudia, and the rest, then the rivers will continue to be as they are. Now we talk about mining in settlements. That is one area that this government has not been able to tackle. And it keeps growing in large leaps and bounds. Now almost every town is being ravaged. Mining is going on within towns, settlements, by main roads. That one, this government has not made any major strides in those areas. And the more you keep people mining in settlements, more people feel emboldened and they go on to mine. And it's not helping. Another dangerous area that I have spoken about but has not gotten any attention is the issue of what the miners call Sankofa, which is gaining grounds.
What's that?
So Sankofa is leaching. And Sankofa means they are bringing back the tailings. That's the residue of mining from Galamsey area. So when they mine, the residue that they are throwing away, there is a belief that it still has about 70% unrecoverable gold, recoverable gold in there. And the only way that they could recover is to use cyanide. And so they dig ponds, huge ponds, and then they put the residue that they bought from Galamseyers across the country in there. Then they put large amounts of cyanide, and they work it for days in recovering the gold. And I tell you, cyanide is a very dangerous chemical. And when they finish this, the residue, where does it go? Some of them have gone into streams. And in fact, when you go to Asutifi North, Asutifi South, Amasia West, Takwa, these leaching sites are common, very common. And this one is banned by our own laws. Small-scale miners are not allowed to use cyanide in leaching. Even the large-scale miners is under supervision by the Minerals Commission.
Okay.
And I have spoken about it so many times, but still, these Sankofa joints are springing up almost everywhere. And Winston, if we are not able to tackle that soon, the amount of cyanide we're going to realize in our environment, in settlement, because most of these things are not done in secluded areas. They are done within the towns. You go to Ntotroso. In Ntotroso, Kenyasi number 1, Kenyasi number 2, Collins Dowder's constituency. And it saddens me that he sits on the Lands and Natural Resources Committee in Parliament. And within his constituency, this is where we are doing this criminal, illegal, dangerous practice. And I don't remember the last time he spoke about it in Parliament. And so that is something that we need to really look at. And the rate at which we are mining within towns, Usino is a clear example.
Sure.
In broad daylight, Kumasi Accra Road, go through the town, fly a drone and see. And we are documenting it. Very soon we'll be, broadcasting community by community. We started already. We are doing more to let people see how we are mining in towns and how that is affecting people's livelihoods.
Now, Erastus, before you continue, the NPP, the NDC wrote to office arguing that there was a need to arrest the kingpins involved in illegal mining. What's happened to these kingpins?
Yeah, so the only kingpin I know has been arrested is Chairman to me and his Akunta mining. And to me, that's a great, remarkable achievement as well. But there are quite a number of big people who have done some environmental infractions who have not been arrested. And I give the example of Heritage Imperial Limited. In fact, they started mining the Apamprama Forest Reserve illegally. And I say so because in 2018, when Professor Frimpong Boateng sent the Galamsey to go and flush them out, I was part of the team. And what they showed us was not a license. In fact, they had nothing in mining in the forest reserve. They said they had a prospecting license. They could not provide it when we went there. But even with the prospecting license, it did not give them the right to use over 35 excavators to mine the forest reserve. And you know that the late Sir John put up placards and others that they were doing reclamation in that forest. When we did the fact checking by then, it was not reclamation, it was deep illegal mining they were doing within the town, backed by soldiers and others. And until now, the directors of Heritage Imperial Limited are still running free. Nobody has asked any questions, but there's evidence. There's evidence that they mined the forest in 2018 with no license. and the videos and other things that we captured by then, they are still there. The Galamsey members who arrested them and hauled the over 35 excavators to Accra are still alive. Mr. Chuman Popwajikum is still alive. He has evidence. He has documents to back. So why are the directors of Heritage Imperial still around? Why is nobody accounting? Today, 50% of that forest is gone. And recently, because they thought that nobody was watching, you had some NDC executives in Ashanti region go in there. And I'm saying NDC executives because when the 28 Chinese nationals and 3 Ghanaians who recently invaded the forest, when they were arrested and they were sent to the Bekwai Circuit Court, some NDC executives came around and they tried to bribe some of our colleagues not to report the story. 15,000 cedis each. Not to report the story on the Chinese nationals. What are their interests? So we have quite a number of party faithfuls, party executives, DCEs at the local level who are pushing people, bringing in Chinese and other people to continue to mine illegally within certain circles. And I have said it, that until the president starts cracking the whip on his appointees at the local level, until the president or the interior ministry starts making illegal mining criminal at the local level so that police will do due diligence as they do to armed robbery, we will still be back to where we are. Currently, I have farmers in various districts who come to my newsroom in Kumasi that I should come and report on their farms that have been taken over. And of course, when we go and you fly the drone and you see where their farm is, the entire area has been mined. So their farm is just some small ant in the ecosystem still surviving. And because they won't sell it, they report to the police, no action. And it's cutting across everywhere.
Okay.
So I would say that the president has started well. The establishment of gold boards to at least get some revenue from the gold you are mining illegally or legally is good. The establishment of NIMOS is also good. They are doing some very good. But they should not forget that the previous administration started well, just like they started. But in the course of it, they slacked and allowed the illegality to continue. So the test is whether they will be able to improve upon what they are doing and be able to do a coordinated exercise, where illegal mining is a crime at the local level. DCs and MCs are held accountable for the destruction that is going on within their jurisdiction, and the police are also doing their job very well. Then, with that coordinated efforts and alternative livelihood empowerment programs, we'll be getting somewhere.
Erastus, thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. And that's Erastus Asare Donko, who's been leading our coverage and fight against illegal mining, joining us here on the Super Morning Show.